Hey YouTube, what's going on? Dose in the house. The third video, which is shutter speed, ProviewsTV. It's the reviews from pros that know what's going on. Let's go! YouTube, what's going on? Dose in the house, ProviewsTV. Today, we're going to be talking about episode 3, shutter speed. So we've been doing a series of the different elements of the exposure triangle. We shot a video on ISO, which all we know, Fruity Pebbles. We shot a video on depth of field, aka the blurry background, aka the aperture. This video is episode 3, the shutter speed. So what is the shutter speed in the camera? Your camera is able to shoot at different shutter speeds, and there's really only going to be 2 situations when you want to use the shutter speed. Again, primary function of the shutter speed is to get more light into your camera. So the lower the shutter speed, more light goes into the camera. But there is a con. Just like there's a pro in everything in this world, like my pro viewers, there is also a con to everything in this world as well. If you jam the shutter speed up, and the only time you will do that is because if you shoot, at 30 shutter speed, let's say, good rule of thumb, shoot double the frame rate in your shutter speed. I like to shoot everything in 24 frames. So because I shoot in 24, the Canon doesn't go to 48 shutter unless you have the magic lantern, which we'll talk about later. I usually like to shoot at 50. What does that mean? The lower that number, you're going to get more light into the camera. But the higher that number, everything is going to look real jittery. And the reason it's going to look jittery is because, the element inside of the glass is going to be moving really, really fast. It's going to chop up the image. It's going to look like a robot. It's like, It's going to look just like that. But, you have to lower your shutter speed to get more light into the camera. The con to that is that your image is going to look real. There's going to be a lot of motion blur. And sometimes you may not want that because motion blur is going to make your video not look as sharp. So a good rule of thumb is just use double the frame rate as a rule of thumb. If you're going to be shooting a lot of action and you want to catch the action, I would, bring it up a tiny bit more, maybe to like 100, 120. I generally don't go anywhere near those, higher numbers. Your stuff is going to look real jittery. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. Show them the B-roll. All right, everybody. So right now, as you can see, I have a very underexposed image. My aperture is at 4.0 because my lens only drops down to 4.0. My ISO is at 100 and my shutter is at 30. So just like we spoke about, the more you drop the shutter, you're going to get more light into the camera. I'm going to bring the shutter up to where it should be for action shots because I'm going to be moving my bottle around. I'm at around 125 right now. It's very dark. I'm going to take my ISO. Let's boost that up all the way. Right now, I'm at about ISO 5000. And it's looking good. So, I am going to go ahead and move the glass cleaner left and right. At a high shutter speed, you'll see that, see how it's a little bit like jittery, like I'm at 125. But sometimes you want to stay here to catch the action. Let's go ahead. I'm going to drop this down all the way to double the frame rate. I'm shooting at 24, so that will be 50. I'm going to move it left and right now. A lot smoother. See that? A lot smoother at double the frame rate, which is recommended. That's where we want you to go. Again, if you're catching things that are moving a little bit fast, you may want to just go a little bit up, maybe 100. I'm going to move. It looks just a tiny bit jittery, right? So let's drop that back down to maybe 80. And that's a good mix right there. I'm gonna go all the way down to 30. Now when you go down to 30, what happens is that as I move, you see that motion blur? It's hard to keep the words in focus because the shutter is really, really low. So that's your pros and cons, everybody. Your initial method of use is, again, it's going to be to bring more light into the camera. But again, there's a pros and cons to everything in this world. And now you can kind of see what the shutter speed does. So as you can see, these are the primary reasons on why you want to understand what the shutter speed does into your camera. The primary reason, I need to get more light into my camera, so I'm going to bring the shutter speed down. If I bring it too down, it's going to be way too much motion blur, and you don't want that. If it's too high, people are going to look like they're Mr. Roboto. It's going to look staccato. It's going to look like it's being choppy. So that's really it. And if you use these concepts in photography, you know, I'm going to give you my preferred setting. I'm not a photographer by any means, but I've shot some pretty awesome photos. And the setting that I like to use on the camera the most is called TV. If you're using a Canon camera, if you're using a Nikon, I believe it's also T mode or shutter priority. What does that mean? What shutter priority does is that if you keep it on TV mode, the camera's gonna say, okay, give me a shutter speed that you want me to stay at, and I'm gonna compensate everything else. I'm gonna compensate the other two elements of the exposure triangle. I typically like to leave the shutter when I'm in TV mode. I like to leave it at about 120, 160 whenever I'm shooting things that are moving really fast. If things are, you know, because sometimes I like to move really fast and just snap the photo. I don't want to miss the moment. ISO, I leave ISO on automatic whenever I'm shooting photography because I want to be able to catch the motion and I don't want to have to worry about the ISO. Aperture is going to move up and down. It's not going to affect me as much. So if you're just starting out in photography, I want you to go ahead and try those settings out. Go out and shoot like moving cars and stuff like that. And you'll see that your pictures are going to come out great. You know, you're going to be able to jump up and down. And if you've ever wondered how people catch people in the air and they're just like frozen in time, it's because they're shooting with a high shutter speed. With video, it's a totally different concept. All right, you guys. So that was it of the 3-part series. I hope you guys learned a little thing or two about this exposure triangle, because God knows when I was searching YouTube, it took me maybe about 17,000 of these videos to finally get it. I hope I was able to explain it in a way that's very simple and very entertaining to understand. So my name is Dose, and this is ProviewsTV. The reviews from pros that know what's going on. Let's go!